Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Huddle, the Review.com's weekly high school sports show. I'm Rob Toder, joined as always by Mike Brown. And Mike, let's quickly recap week one of the high school football season. Any surprises, anything that shocked you from week one?
Well, I'll tell you what, the most impressive thing was the Arlington Dukes and quarterback Chris Pennell. Right out of the gate, he goes out, breaks his own school record, throws for over 400 yards. And the Dukes post an impressive week one win. I think Marlington's going to have a really nice football season this year, Rob.
Yeah, 24 out of 28 passing for Pennell. You can't do much better than that.
No, you can. And he's a good one. You know, he broke a lot of long-standing records last year, and now he's already breaking his own record. So I think they're going to have a tremendous air game this fall.
Well, this week the Dukes traveled to Ravenna, and based on week one performances, that should be another victory for the Dukes.
Right. I think Marlington, and I blew that early in the week. We actually had to make our picks in the paper the previous week. I had picked Ravenna. I take all that back. I think Marlington wins big in a blowout this weekend, especially if Pennell has the kind of night I think he's going to have again. Ravenna lost their week one game to Talmadge, which is a good opponent. But the game is at Ravenna, but I just think Marlington's got a nice package this year because they've got the good air game, good receivers, and they have a real nice running back to complement the air game. So I think they've got everything you need to have a really good year.
Okay, the Alliance Aviators go from the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah.
They had a tough week one game against St. Thomas, and it doesn't get any easier because they play host to the Canfield Cardinals.
Right, and Canfield had that lead last week against Louisville and gave up 2 touchdowns, I think, in the last quarter and lost a tough one. So, and Alliance is at home. I guess that's a good thing this week, but I think Alliance is going, like they do with any first-year head coach, you're going to be going through some growing pains, find out what works, what doesn't work, and that's a process. As much as you like it to wish it happens overnight, it doesn't. And Canfield's going to be a stiff opponent for him Friday night.
The West Branch Warriors had a tough week one game against Crestwood, losing 39-26, and they play undefeated Beaver Local. Obviously, Beaver Local 1-0 with a shutout win over Akron North.
Right, yeah, and this is a game West Branch won quite handily last year on the road. This year it's at home. And again, like Chris Pennell of Marlington, TJ DeShields went out and threw for 309 yards in week one last week. West Branch threw 59 passes in that game last week. So people are going to see the game this week. You better bring your blanket, bring some extra food. It's going to take a while, I think, to play that game.
Yeah. They kind of eschewed the running game a little bit, especially as they got behind. They had to throw.
Yeah.
And I'm sure DJ Dota, the West Branch coach, is looking for a more balanced attack.
I would think so because they've got that kind of running back in Rob Lozier, who's one of the fastest running backs in the league this year. And I think that might be something they'll be able to do that last week. I think the reason he threw so much last week, he didn't want to get in a slugfest with Crestwood because Crestwood had worn them down the previous 3 years. And as it turned out, they wore him down again in spite of that. But I think he was trying to avoid that as long as he could. And it worked because West Branch had a lead at a half, but they just couldn't hang around and couldn't physically hang with them in the second half, where I think it's a better matchup for West Branch with Beaver Local.
Okay. The Sebring Trojans are 1-0, a nice win for them last week over Windham, and they go on the road to Southington. And again, I think Sebring's favored in this game.
Right. That should be a good game. Hey, Robbie Rouse, great game last week. Sebring's down 20-8 at halftime. And Robbie Rouse puts the Trojans on his back, scores 2 late touchdowns, along with another touchdown they had in there. And they come back and they beat the Windham Bombers. So it's great. I remember when I played high school football, Rob, the coach would always say, week one wins are so important because it sets the tone for the rest of the season, especially if you have a mixture of younger guys. And I think that it gives them a confidence level to go into week 2 and the rest of the season. So that's good, getting a week 1 win for Sebring last week.
I didn't know you played for Amos Alonzo State.
Yeah, back in the day, we had like the leather helmets, and they've improved that a little bit. So.
Nice for you. Good
thanks.
for you.
Yeah, for sure.
We've got a couple area teams playing each other, St. Thomas and Minerva. Those two teams, again, kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. St. Thomas, a program obviously very strong, and Minerva looking to regain that swagger.
You're right, and it's like what we talked about for Alliance. Lance Willison had a great football career at Minerva back in the day. He's the new head coach at Minerva, but again, it's a new head coach. It's a process, and I think he's a guy who will really turn that around because there's a lot of respect there, and I think he commands that kind of respect, and I think they'll turn it around sooner than later. But in St. Tom, they're dealing with a team that has a veteran offensive line coming back. I think one of the linemen, Pedroso, I believe, is going to Eastern Michigan. They've got a really good offensive line, and they're going to come in and they're going to try and beat you in the trenches. So the game is at Minerva. That might help a little bit, but Minerva's going to have to bring it, I think, against St. Tom come Friday night.
The other team I wanted to mention today is Western Reserve. Columbiana got a couple late three-pointers last week and won 63-52. And again, it doesn't get easier for the Blue Devils.
Right.
They've got to go to South Range on Friday night
That's
and
right.
face a great program in the Raiders.
They sure do, and you think what Dan Yegley's done at South Range over the years. I mean, that's a future Eastern Buckeye Conference opponent, so we'll be seeing the Raiders a lot in the future. But boy, Western Reserve's got two tough games to open the season. I mean, that was a shootout. Bob Spade, I know Columbiana has their quarterback coming back, tremendous athlete, and we kind of expected a shootout last week. That's what they got. Unfortunately, they were on the short end of that. But playing South Range, that's another tough one. South Range has been a balanced team over the years under Yegley, and I would think that would be a really competitive game come Friday night.
Okay, some of the other games in the area: Waterloo at East Canton, Southeast at Field, Salem at United. That's going to be an interesting matchup.
Right,
too.
that's turned into a backyard rivalry over the years, and United's held its own in that rivalry. I don't know what the overall series is, but it's a lot closer than people would think. That game's down at United Local Friday night, but Salem and Ron Johnson, like I said last week, he's got that program rolling. I just think they happen to hit a really good East Palestine team that made the playoffs last year, that has some key people back this year. The game was at East Palestine last week, and Palestine got them in a shootout.
And Louisville and North Canton Hoover, of course, renew their rivalry, and that's going to be a hard hitting battle.
Yep, one of the great classic Stark County rivalries continues on Friday night at Hoover. And Louisville, even though Louisville gives up a little enrollment to North Canton now, Louisville's really had their way with North Canton over the last decade and a half in that series. So we'll see if that continues Friday night. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it does, because the Leopards always have that great air game. They just plug new guys into there, kind of like Mount Union. They have a great system. They know the guys they want in that system. They plug a new quarterback in, and they just keep rolling right along.
Okay, so make sure you check out the Alliance Review and the Review.com all week. We'll have previews of all those games. We'll have coverage of all those games Friday night and video as well. So till next week, for Mike Brown, this is Rob Toder. We'll see you then.